It's my thrill and my pleasure to invite to the stage Mr. Kris, our wonderful leader, who's going to take us. This is ready to go. Thank you. Come on up, Kris.
Hello, Miramichi. I have a feeling by the crowd that I'm seeing here today and the electricity in the air that Miramichi is tired of the same old politics and it's time for something new. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you fine folks today. And, you know, it's so important to, as Joyce said, get involved and understand and informed of where we are as a province, where we are looking to go, what is our outcome here at the end of the day, what is our goal, what is our ambition. We need vision. Would you not say we need real vision in our government today? I want to start by, expressing how proud I am of the local team here in the Miramichi that put all of this together, the food, the advertising, the door-to-door campaign, the phone calls, the financial contribution that businesses have put into this area. I'd like to just take a moment and thank you for the volunteers. Well done. Well done. And, it's just so great to see such a movement take place here on such an important spot in New Brunswick here in the Miramichi. I want to thank each of you for being here. I realize that in political events, there's all kinds of ideas and opinions and backgrounds that go with politics. I know there's many of you here that are strong supporters of the People's Alliance. You believe in what we're doing, you like what you hear in our policies and ideas, and you back us 100%. I know there's some of you here that aren't quite sure. You've sat back and you've watched and you want to come out and hear this message today of what we've got to say. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Whether you're here as a strong supporter, whether you're here just simply to check it out, or whether you're here to try to find something wrong, I don't care. I'm just glad you're here because it helps us get the message out to New Brunswick. So the People's Alliance was formed in the summer of 2010, around June 2010. And the election of 2010 was in September. So we had about 5 months, to prepare the party and to run an election. I remember in 2010 when we had formed the party, there was many people that said, a lot of naysayers out there that said, you guys will never make it. New Brunswick's not ready for a third party, As disgruntled as they were with the other two, they said the third party is just not an option. We ran in 2010, we got more votes than anyone expected, and we saw momentum in 2010, so we beat that barrier. In 2014, I remember a couple years before 2014, people said the same thing. Well, you ran in 2010, yeah, you kind of impressed a few people, but you're never going to make it to 2014. Well, in 2014, we ran more candidates and got more votes, and our momentum continued to build. I heard recently that there's some parties out there that think we're going to fold up and move to one of the other major parties. Well, I'm going to put that to bed right now here publicly. We're here to stay, and we're going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2018. I will tell you emphatically as a leader of this party, and I know every single board member and supporter of this party believes the same thing. The two parties are not going to change from within. We have to be the answer to chart a better course for New Brunswick because they're not getting it done. There's a very important announcement that I would like to make today, and it's going to be the first announcement, one of the first announcements in our 2018 platform. And as a board and as a research group committee, we kicked around the idea, when do we start releasing our platform for 2018 leading into the election? And the consensus among us was, let's start early. Let's get the message out early and give people time to think about it, to read on it, and to become informed on what we're trying to say. So today, you are the first to hear this announcement that will carry us forward into 2018. And we, as a party, are going to make changes to the Motor Vehicle Act. Those changes include, number one, You will not be required to have front license plates on your vehicles going forward as a government. We will remove that requirement. And I want to say too, as we go along here, we've checked with the Insurance Bureau of New Brunswick, we've talked to police organizations, we've met with different stakeholders to make sure that what we're saying makes sense and that it will work. And of course, the 2 license plates, it's kind of needless, right? And especially those of you that have antique cars and sports cars and all the fancy wheels, you know, I hear from you a lot that, you know, this front license plate thing is nonsense. So we're going to remove that, and it's going to save you money as owners of vehicles. The second thing we're going to change in the Motor Vehicle Act, which is complete nonsense, the People's Alliance, when we form government, will not mandate or require owners of vehicles to register their vehicles annually. You will do it once and once only. You know it, and I know it, that annual registration of vehicles is nothing more than a money grab. It's nothing more than a money grab. It's an inconvenience. I know I'd rather be doing other things than sitting in a Service New Brunswick line waiting to register my vehicle. Right? I know I could do a lot more with my $120, $140 a year to register my car, and then another $120, $140 a year to register my van. There's money that people need to keep back in their pockets that they can in turn invest back into the local economy, right? Why give the money to government when they waste it, when you can keep the money in your pocket and give it back to the local economy? It just makes more sense. So that's done. Thirdly, the last change to the Motor Vehicle Act we will make is we will no longer require sales tax or the HST to be applied to the sale of private vehicles. Private sale of vehicles. That's done. Think about it for a second. When you buy a new car, you pay tax on that new car.
There you go.
When you sell that car, you then, as under the current system, you pay tax on it again. So if that car changes hands, and I know there's some car salesmen here, we're glad you're here because I figured you'd like this one. But when you change, when that vehicle changes hands from time to time, the tax on that vehicle can actually, at the end of the life of the vehicle, be worth more than the vehicle itself. Right? Folks, it's a tax grab. Registering your vehicle every year, that's just a money grab. Taxes on the private sale of used vehicles, that's a money grab. And we're saying enough of the money grabs. We want to give people more money back in their pocket and see government run efficiently and smoothly the way you want it to run. We're determined to do it. So I want to reiterate that, of course, when you end the sale, the HST on the sale of secondhand vehicles, when you talk about no longer requiring annual registration, these things take out revenue from the general fund in the government. I understand that. What I commit to you today is all of our promises have been costed, all of our ideas have been put through research to see where the numbers are, to the best of our ability, the numbers that are available, and I can tell you that we can very smoothly do these things in terms of saving you money and still defeat the deficit, balance the budget, and make sure government spends their money wisely, because that's what is at the very center of good government. Did you know that New Brunswick is one of the highest taxed provinces in Canada? You and I pay some of the highest taxes in this nation. Property assessments, I don't know if you want me to go there or not. Right? I mean, they're through the roof. And then when you get into the whole scandal of this recent tax, you know, so I was talking to someone here earlier as I was mingling around the crowd, and they made a very valid point, one that I've heard other places. What would happen if you went to the government and you fraudulently government that you did not do something to your property that you actually did? What would that be called?
MLA.
Well, that too. But it's fraud. Is it not fraud? If you try to fraud the government out of taxes, it's fraud. Why is it the government can do it to you? Why is it that the government can allow these things to happen? We haven't had a resignation from Minister Doherty. It should have been instant. He should have resigned. And now we have the Premier's fingers all in this property tax assessment scandal. He needs to resign. And those in the upper management of Service New Brunswick who fabricated renovations to people's homes, these are seniors, these are low-income people, these are struggling families that try to make ends meet. And the government is frauding the people of New Brunswick, and heads need to roll as a result. Our projected deficit in the coming year is $192 million. That means we're going to be spending as a province, we're going to be borrowing $192 million more than what we bring in. Our overall debt accumulated is now projected to be $14.4 billion. That's $19,000 for every man, woman, boy, and girl in the province of New Brunswick. That's not including your personal debt or the federal debt applied. That's simply provincial debt. We spend close to $2 million a year just servicing that massive debt with such a small population. It's unfortunate, but governments have borrowed money for over 10 years creating a deficit. Now think about this for a second. The Gallant government has raised taxes over 10 times in the last 2.5 years. I mean, there's everything from, well, you name it. There's a whole gamut of taxes that have been raised over the last 2.5 years. They brought in what they believe is a projected deficit over $700 million in extra funding. And although they're raising taxes and bringing more money in, they still haven't balanced the budget. They're still borrowing money on top of raising your taxes. There's something seriously, fundamentally wrong about that. How long could you run your home with that type of principled thinking? How long would it be before you're out on the street if you had to borrow money every year for the last 10 years on top of what you bring in and continue to let that debt accumulate? Well, I can tell you New Brunswick is at a pivotal moment. There's many economists that are out there that are saying New Brunswick is in very dire straits. And a lot of that is being put on our backs and the backs of our children. The People's Alliance is determined, and we commit to you here today, that we will eliminate the deficit and we will bring New Brunswick back to balanced books. Period. We will no longer allow governments to continue the reckless spending on the backs of our children and our grandchildren, because they're the ones that will pay for all of these expenses that the government is doing today for ribbon-cutting ceremonies, agendas, and to help them get reelected. It has to stop, and it has to stop now. We will eliminate this deficit by various means, and I'm going to give you a couple here today. The first thing we're determined to do is we're going to stop taxpayers' handouts going to big corporate interests. That's done. Your tax dollars and mine should be going to roads, education, healthcare, infrastructure, and some basic social programs. It should not be going to the likes of Sears, IBM, and Irving. That has to stop. We will put an end to it. $300 million a year. $300 million a year goes to corporate welfare, on average. That's in the form of forgivable loans, subsidies, or grants that governments give to big corporate interests. Sears Canada, Joyce mentioned it earlier. Sears Canada. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Sears Canada, on the verge of bankruptcy by all accounts. Our government comes up with a harebrained idea that they're going to give them $9 million for 2 call centers, one in Edmundston and one in St. John. Now, we know how the call center thing works with government money. We know how most industry works with government money. You bring the jobs in, you fulfill a few months of your contract, you pack up and you leave, and guess where your tax dollars goes? It goes with them as they leave New Brunswick. It's got to stop. We will end corporate welfare. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to eliminate duality. I'm a small town boy. And I know many of you have heard this story if you've been out to my rallies, but I will tell you that growing up in Minto, Minto was the coal mining capital of the area. Minto had all kinds of cultures. We had English, French, we had Dutch, we had Italian, German. They'd go in the coal mines, they would work long, hard days in treacherous conditions. They would come out at night and they'd get their guitars or their spoons or whatever they could find to play instruments on. They worked hard, they played hard, they all got along. It's not until you get ridiculous government policies that come into the factor that creates division and hardship and disunity. I mean, here in New Brunswick, you realize we have 2 health authorities? We have Vitalite. Do you know what Vitalite does? They offer bilingual service to patients. We have Horizon. Guess what Horizon does? It offers bilingual service to patients. So what we're saying, $40 to $60 million every single year can be saved if we take Vitalite and we take Horizon and we merge them into one bilingual health authority. And the best part of it, you're saving $40 to $60 million a year. You're not closing one hospital to do it. You're not laying off one nurse to do it. You don't have to get rid of any doctors to do it. You simply change the administrative structure in this province to make sure there's one consistent care of service. So if you go to a hospital in Miramichi, you go to a hospital in St. John, Fredericton, or Moncton, your level of care will be consistent across the board, and New Brunswickers will save tens of millions of dollars by doing that. Another ridiculous form of duality that we are going to end is this idea that French and English children cannot travel on the same bus. We have got to be the only jurisdiction in the civilized world that continues to segregate our children based on language. And here's the kicker. The area of the province where they actually allowed French and English children to travel on the same bus is a predominantly Francophone community. So this idea that this is an English thing, this is a New Brunswick thing, folks. I talk to Francophones, I talk to Anglophones, I talk to First Nations. What people want is they want to come together. They want government policies that make them It's never the people. It's the government legislation and the government laws that create problems and hardship for our cultures. We are determined that we will have English and French children traveling on the same bus, learning each other's culture and language. They get off the bus anyway. What do? They go on the playground, they play together the way they're supposed to. So that nonsense is going to end. We're determined to end it, and that will save approximately $20 million every single year. And again, you don't have to take one bus off the road to do it. I believe in that which is fair and equal. And I can tell you right here today publicly, I will fight as hard for the Francophone as I will for the Anglophone in the province of New Brunswick. We're all in this together. And I have learned through traveling this province that these issues go far beyond culture. They just go to the heart of common sense. You know, I remember back in 2014 when the Alward government had the review of the Official Languages Act. And I remember how hard we fought for the sole principle to say this review, this committee, this get-together to review the Official Languages Act should not be a secret thing. It should be held behind closed doors. These are government public policies. And I remember telling Mr. Alward, open the doors to this review. Let people come in and give arguments and have respectful debate on amendments if needed for the Official Languages Act and how we can make it better so that both cultures can flourish and grow in one province. But they didn't. They kept the doors closed. And they kept the doors closed for a very specific reason. Because they brought amendments into the Official Languages Act, which is not only infringing on government institutions and departments, but now the Official Languages Act also applies to private associations, like hairstyling associations. Seriously. Police associations, real estate associations, all of these professional associations now have to fall under the Official Languages Act. That's why they wanted it quiet. And I want to tell you something. every single Liberal and Conservative MLA voted in favor of those amendments to the Official Languages Act. Every one of them. It was unanimous. So when I hear them come out now and bark and complain about the language problems we have in New Brunswick, little do they know they need to look in the mirror, because they're the ones that voted in favor of what we have today in this province in terms of language division. The People's Alliance is determined, again, to bring fairness, that which is just, that which brings harmony and equality to our linguistic communities, because I know that's what's at the heart of what the people want. We have a great, diverse province. Acadian culture is amazing. You know, the Anglophone, I went to the Highland Games there this summer, and it was just amazing to see the cultures and the First Nation culture and all the different cultures that come out of New Brunswick. We all get together and we all get along, but government has got to stop the nonsense of these divided laws and regulations. Let's talk about jobs for a moment. You know, my wife, I should recognize my wife. Is she here? Did she have to take the baby out? She's probably crawling under a chair somewhere now. She's out back. My wife is here with me with the kids, but she was, I was driving her up through the Miramichi. We're just taking a look around. She's been here a few years ago, but it's been a while. And I said, you know, the Miramichi at one time, you know, when I was a kid growing up, it was a vibrant, prosperous area. You know, matter of fact, it was what? I believe the forestry capital of Canada at one point. It was prosperous and booming. And the Miramichi, much like other areas of the province, is now facing financial hardship. Small businesses are struggling, and jobs are scarce. And it's hard in this region. It's hard in rural regions around the province. And we've got to change that tide. We've got to turn things around to see that these areas prosper and grow again. I mean, again, and it gets back to taxes. You can relate jobs in the economy directly to taxes. The higher the taxes are in any given province, the less jobs you're going to have, because small businesses cannot grow under the weight of excessive taxes. The People's Alliance, in terms of taxes, is calling for a complete tax reform. And one thing we have announced on February the 20th was the elimination of the double tax in the province of New Brunswick. Now, for those of you that are business owners, that you have property that you operate your business out of, the double tax directly affects you because you're paying what is known as a double tax. Here's the kicker. We're the only province in Canada that does it. I know you're shocked by that because we do such great things here in terms of government policy. But we're the only province in Canada that does it, that has a double tax. When you eliminate the double tax, people say to me, but you're going to lose all that money. I say, granted you will, but when you eliminate corporate welfare, you've got money left over to eliminate these nonsensical taxes. So yes, temporarily, short term, you're going to lose a certain amount of revenue, or you're going to take it from the ending of corporate welfare. But as time goes on, the lower taxes that you have for businesses, the more apt and able they are to come in and start their businesses. I mean, let me just get a general poll in this room. How many of you, either yourself or someone you know directly, has had to leave New Brunswick for work? That's by far the majority, no question. Either you or someone you know has had to leave New Brunswick for work. So I'm thinking to myself, there's a whole lot of people that love this province that don't want to leave. I talk to them all the time. Family people, whether it's the man going out west or the woman going somewhere else to make ends meet, they're struggling, they do what they have to do. Why don't we create a province by which we have such a low tax rate that people that are elsewhere can bring some of that money back here, start their own business, get an entrepreneurship going, and start to revitalize the small and medium-sized business in New Brunswick. That's the backbone of New Brunswick, not big corporate interests. It's small and medium-sized business. That's what we need to focus on. By eliminating the double tax and the small business tax, we give people a fighting chance to make a real difference in the economy of New Brunswick. Let's talk again about industry. And I want to say here, just to kind of lay the groundwork, we're not opposed to industry. We welcome industry. We want to see all jobs brought to New Brunswick, whether it's big industry, small, medium-sized business. We want to see it all here. But I'll tell you, when it comes to big industry, we firmly believe big industry should be paying their fair amount of tax, just like everybody else. And I'll give you an example. The Irving Oil Refinery in St. John. That refinery pays approximately $4 million a year in taxes. If that same refinery was in Alberta, it would be paying between $24 to $26 million a year in taxes. So we're losing a huge amount of tax revenue from that one industry, and there's many big industries across the province, but that one industry, we lose millions and tens of millions of dollars on that one industry. So what we are saying, by adding machinery and equipment back into assessments, that will increase the assessment rate and increase the tax rate so that they're paying fair and reasonable taxes. We're not out to gouge industry, but we realize in order to keep a sustaining system, industry's got to pay their fair share, and we've got to get it off the backs of ordinary people like you and I. So while we're on tax assessments, let me just dig in there a little bit further. There were two things that I know of, and I'm sure there's others, but two that I'm sure whose property taxes did not increase. Okay? The first was Canaport LNG in St. John. Canaport LNG in St. John had their tax deal rescinded by the provincial government, which we supported. We thought that was a good move, a fair move for the people of St. John. They rescinded the tax deal that they had, but in order to rescind the tax deal, they had to bring in a new assessment to make sure they got the proper assessment of the Canaport LNG property. Well, here's what the province of New Brunswick did. Now this, when I read this, I just remember how frustrated I was. And I'm thinking how other people must be frustrated when they're informed of this. But here's what the province of New Brunswick did. They said, okay, there's Canaport LNG that's going to start paying taxes, fair taxes, to the city of St. John, the province of New Brunswick. So what the province did was they hired an assessment firm, not out of Fredericton, not out of Moncton or St. John. No, not even out of Canada. They went to New Jersey, and they found an assessment firm in New Jersey that came to St. John and assessed the Canaport LNG terminal. Do you know what this firm in New Jersey brags about? The firm in New Jersey brags about having low assessments so they can pay the lowest amount of taxes possible. That's what they do. Industry, not governments. Industry pays these people to come in and assess their property so that they can lowball the assessment, which means they're paying the least amount of taxes as possible. And your government hired them to come in to do the Canaport LNG assessment. Shame. Furthermore, the Canaport LNG assessment terminal, that property was assessed and was decreased by 67%. So while our seniors, while our working families, while our struggling people in New Brunswick are having fabricated renovations to their homes so their taxes go up, big industry in St. John, the province is in cahoots with them, getting the company from New Jersey paid them $75,000 to come in here and lowball that assessment. So you're paying high taxes and they're paying as low taxes as possible. Folks, New Brunswick is crooked, it's scandalous, it's corrupt. We're here to change it, period. And what we're going to do is very simple. We're going to include machinery and equipment into the assessment that's done. And we're going to give local municipalities the ability to assess the properties within their jurisdictions. So that municipalities can then work with the industry, they can work with the residential rate, the commercial rate, they can have more control and authority over how they tax their people. If a municipality chooses to low taxes to bring in jobs, that should be their ability to do it. The government of New Brunswick should not override that. Give the municipalities the power. In so doing, we are convinced that there will be enough tax revenue brought in so that we can continue to build our roads, our healthcare, our infrastructure, and get New Brunswick back on the right track. Another initiative that we've called for, which I know is important to the people of Miramichi, is we are going to create and we are going to work towards a new Crown Forest Act. A new Crown Forest Act will balance environmental needs, the needs of industry, as well as the local private woodlot owner and the communities. I mean, wood allocation is a big thing, is it not? How is it that they can cut trees of the Miramichi and send them somewhere else? Right? It's wrong. So we have got to get back to a regional idea of how the forests are managed so that everybody's got a fair shake in our Crown lands. I mean, right now, and as a matter of fact, over the last probably decade or more, taxpayers have paid, when you look at the bottom line after all expenses and revenue, taxpayers have paid to have lumber shipped off our Crown land. So not only are we not getting money from the Crown wood, we're actually paying industry to take it off. Who else would do this? Right? It's absurd. And they say, yes, but you know, mills will close and we'll lose jobs. Look, folks, at the end of the day, things have got to be done right. When things are done right and when they're done fair, and when you think outside the box, have a little bit of innovation and vision in your thinking, you can easily make sure that industry stays right where they are through other means, and you can make sure you build your small and medium-sized business so that if, and I say if, and I don't think there would be, but if there's any loss, be more than made up in a vibrant, boosted economy in New Brunswick. We've got to work together on this. It's good here today. I noticed Caroline Luberdarcy, Mark Luberdarcy. Caroline's and her husband, the two of them, have worked very hard on the Stop Spraying New Brunswick. For those of you that are maybe not aware, there's spraying that goes on over hydro lines. Industry uses glyphosate spraying as well. And there's many concerns. There's health concerns, of course, environmental concerns, and there's job loss because of it. So the People's Alliance is here to say, and we've fought for this for quite some time, and we're going to fight for it again in 2018, but we will stop the spraying of glyphosate in the province of New Brunswick. And the goal in that is severalfold. Number one, you will help your environment, we believe. But secondly, just as importantly, you're going to create jobs. Because instead of that one plane flying over the hydro line and dropping all this pesticide in the hydro line to kill the hardwood, now you've got silviculture out there. You've got people with thinning saws. You've got people with equipment that are out doing it manually like they used to do it. We've got to get back to these things to create jobs and to boost the economy. And that's why we've called for an end to spraying in New Brunswick. I'm convinced, folks, more than ever, that with common sense policies, with ideas that are rational, visionary, and hopeful, we can turn this province around. New Brunswick doesn't have to continue down this road. We need some outside-the-box thinking, but things that will work, things that will actually, when put into practice, is going to do what we know it will do based on the research and history and what we hope to happen in the future. Great things can happen in New Brunswick, but we've got to change the way that we think. We can bring equality in New Brunswick in terms of the language policies. We can bring jobs in terms of how we allocate government funds to help stimulate the economy. Right? We can do so many things in terms of taxes to make it fair so people are not taxed to death, that they don't have this huge burden weighing on their shoulders financially. Government should not be a burden. Government should be there to lift up and help and create an infrastructure and a plan for the province that everybody can live and prosper and grow. In conclusion, the fact remains we cannot continue on as normal or as the status quo. Regardless of what the old parties would tell you, change is not in their vocabulary. They can't change. We're here to create the change for them. And it's an uprising of the people, it's a movement of the people that's going to do it. It's when we come together, when we think outside the box, when we do things differently, that we can turn the corner on our province. I understand the loyalty that some of you have to the old parties. I do get it. You know, I come out of a home where my father, who's here today, was a strong PC. And I remember going around and helping him with signs. And then my stepfather, he was a strong liberal, so I'd go around and help him with signs too. Right? So there, you know, I understand it. I do get the old party loyalties. And I give you this example. My grandfather was a die-hard Leafs fan. So you get pretty quiet in here all of a sudden. But I remember Grampy was a die-hard Leafs fan. And I remember on a hockey night in Canada on Saturday night, man, I would have been 7 or 8 years old. I did not speak a word. I sat in the corner and I watched the game with Grampy because any talking, that just wasn't allowed. And I remember Grampy used to sit on the edge of his couch and the sweat would be just falling off his forehead as he was just hoping and praying that his Leafs would come victorious at the end of the game. And time again, you know the Leafs, right? Easy. And you know, I got thinking of that lately. I said, you know, my grandfather was loyal to a team that didn't always, you know, do so well. And I thought, you know what, in hockey, that's great. In politics, it's terrible. Because what happens is when we hold loyalties to parties for no just reason, what ends up happening is those parties start to take your vote for granted. What happens is what Joyce said earlier, they start getting this little propaganda out there about splitting vote. Oh, you don't want to touch the People's Alliance, you're going to split the vote, like they own the vote. Huh? I don't remember anybody telling me that the Liberals or Conservatives are destined to govern. You know how I know we're gaining traction? When the attacks start coming. Right? And I'll tell you what, and those of you in the executive on the board, you know this because we've had these discussions. But over and over and over again, we're seeing things on social media about propaganda that's saying, you know, Kris Austin this and the People's Alliance that, and they're going to join the Conservatives and they're going to the Liberal Party and they're going to... It's all nonsense, folks. This is politics. And at the end of the day, I'm here to tell you, we're here for you. We need you to be here for us so we can change this province one way or another and make it happen. Folks, and I'm going to tell you something. The Miramichi, you're going to remember this date because we got about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half to the next election. I promise you, as we go down and as that momentum builds and we see growth and we see new excitement and we see new people coming on board, I'll tell you, we got people that were involved in both parties that are just sick and tired of the games that's been played. You know, they feel that loyalty, but they just can't do it anymore. They're now with us. There's people that come forward, they have no political affiliation whatsoever, but they have enough brains to realize New Brunswick is sinking and it's sinking fast and we need a different approach. But whatever the reason, we're growing. I've spoke long enough. I'm going to be here for about the next hour. I'd love to talk to you if you have any questions. I know there's questions here. I've talked to several people about the salmon fishing, conservation efforts, you know, all of those sorts of things. So if there's any questions you have, we're certainly here. Excuse me, I'll be here to answer your questions and to be as honest as I possibly can with the information that we have. Because what we do takes a lot of research. And we don't want to just throw things out willy-nilly. So, you know, we want to make sure we've got good information to make sure to adapt our policy. I'm going to leave you with one final quote. Margaret Mead, for many years. In the 1940s, she said this, and I quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Thank you very much.